What if Meghan Markle has been lying to the world about something as simple, as basic, and as unchangeable as her own age? That's the kind of jaw-dropping question that stops people mid-scroll. Because let's be honest, age is one of those truths that usually never comes into question. It's on birth certificates, school records, driver's licenses. Yet, in Hollywood, in politics, and in celebrity culture, bending the truth about age is as common as airbrushing a photo. And when Candace Owens looked straight into the camera and said Meghan Markle should just admit you're 52 years old, it wasn't just another internet jab. It was a cultural lightning bolt. Think about it. Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, has spent years crafting an image. From this self-made actress narrative to the royal fairy tale wedding, everything about her has been carefully curated for maximum impact. But what happens when that glossy narrative collides with raw, blunt accusations from someone who thrives on exposing contradictions? What happens when a firebrand like Candace Owens, known for taking no prisoners, calls Meghan out on something that, if true, would unravel so much of her story? Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Let's set the stage. Picture the Oprah interview, the tears, the claims of cruelty, the whispers of racism. Picture the Netflix docuseries, the endless PR campaigns, the staged photos that went viral. Meghan's brand is built on perception. And in the world of perception, age is not just a number, it's currency. Being younger means relatability, freshness, marketability. Being older, especially in Hollywood, often means invisibility. Could it be that Meghan, in her relentless chase for relevance, decided to quietly shave years off her age? And if so, how did Candace Owens end up being the one to rip off that mask? This is where the story gets personal. Candace Owens isn't just another commentator tossing shade for clicks. She's built her career on calling out hypocrisy, on putting her finger on the sore spots celebrities try to hide. Her style is sharp, direct, unapologetic. When she says something, it sticks. And when she leveled her gaze at Meghan and said those 7 words, "Just admit you're 52 years old," the internet caught fire. Memes, debates, shock, disbelief. Was it true? Was it a savage exaggeration? Or was Candace pointing towards something Meghan hoped would stay buried forever? Now, ask yourself this. Why would Meghan lie about her age in the first place? What's the motive? What's the payoff? We've seen this in Hollywood countless times. Actresses adjusting their birth year by 2, 5, even 10 years to land roles, to stay marketable, to avoid being cast aside. But Meghan wasn't just gunning for TV roles. She was aiming for something far more powerful. She wanted global recognition, influence, a place at the royal table. Could a number, a simple number, stand in her way? Here's where it gets even juicier. Age is tied to credibility. If Meghan is older than she claims, then her carefully woven timeline starts to unravel. Her college years, her acting gigs, even the way she presented herself as Harry's modern, younger partner, all of it shifts. The story isn't just about Hollywood vanity anymore. It's about integrity. And that's exactly the chord Candace Owens struck. She wasn't just teasing Meghan about wrinkles or birthdays. She was going after Meghan's credibility, her trustworthiness, her authenticity. Imagine for a second the panic behind closed doors. Meghan, sitting with her team, watching the clip of Candace Owens go viral. How do you respond? Do you laugh it off? Do you issue a statement? Do you ignore it and hope it blows over? Every option carries risk. If she responds, she legitimizes the claim. If she stays silent, the silence becomes deafening. And silence, in today's world, often screams guilt louder than words ever could. And yet, Meghan's silence is exactly what we've seen before. Think back to past controversies. Allegations brushed aside, critics ignored, inconvenient questions unanswered. It's part of the strategy. Let the storm rage, then quietly move on. But this time, the storm isn't just about behavior, it's about identity. Because what if Candace Owens is right? What if Meghan Markle has been presenting herself as younger for decades? What does that mean for the public who bought into her story, for the charities who leaned into her relatability, for the royal family who embraced her image? Here's a surprising twist. While Meghan officially lists her birth year as 1981, making her 43, there have been whispers for years that something doesn't add up. Old classmates questioning timelines. early Hollywood acquaintances mentioning details that didn't quite align. Even photographs where Meghan's age seemed ambiguous. Nothing concrete, nothing that could be nailed down. Until Candace Owens threw gasoline on the embers and set the speculation ablaze. And let's not forget, Candace Owens knew exactly what she was doing. This wasn't an offhand comment. It was a carefully chosen dart aimed right at Meghan's Achilles heel, her obsession with control. Meghan hates losing control of her narrative. Every image, every speech, every appearance is polished within an inch of its life. Candace's claim shattered that polish in a matter of seconds. But what makes this moment so fascinating isn't just the accusation, it's the timing. Why now? Why in this particular cultural moment? Because Meghan's credibility is already hanging by a thread. Public opinion has shifted. Once celebrated as a modernizing force, she is now often seen as manipulative, opportunistic, and out of touch. Candace Owens' attack landed not in a vacuum, but in a moment when people were already asking, what else has Meghan not told us? And that's the real hook here. This isn't just about Meghan's age. It's about trust. It's about whether the public can believe anything she says anymore. It's about the cracks in a carefully crafted image. It's about what happens when one small lie, if proven, unleashes doubt on everything else. Because once people start questioning your age, they'll start questioning everything. Now, pause and consider. How would you react if you found out one of the most famous women in the world had been lying about something as fundamental as her birth year? Would you shrug it off as harmless vanity? Or would you see it as proof of deeper deception? That's the knife's edge Meghan is now standing on. And Candace Owens put her there. But here's the part that makes this story impossible to ignore. The debate doesn't end with Candace's claim. It's only the beginning. Because as soon as her video dropped, the internet did what it does best. It went digging. Old yearbooks, archived interviews, forgotten blog posts. Every piece of evidence became fair game. And what they uncovered would shock even the most skeptical Meghan supporters. Because what came next wasn't just gossip. It was something far more dangerous to Meghan's carefully curated brand. Candace Owens didn't whisper. She didn't hedge. She didn't drop hints and walk away. No, she looked directly into the lens, steady, unapologetic, and fired a verbal missile into Meghan Markle's fortress of image control. The line was simple, brutal, and impossible to ignore. Just admit you're 52 years old. Now imagine hearing those words not from a tabloid, not from a faceless Twitter account, but from Candace Owens, a woman whose brand is built on fearlessness, on speaking the unspeakable. The internet gasped. Viewers sat forward. This wasn't subtle shade. This was a frontal assault, and it landed like thunder. Candace has always had a way of packaging controversy, so it feels less like gossip and more like revelation. Her cadence sharp, her delivery pointed, her pauses deliberate. In that moment, it didn't feel like she was making a joke. It felt like she was delivering a truth bomb. And that's the genius of Candace Owens. She knows how to blur the line between speculation and certainty, between rumor and reality. She knows how to say it in such a way that people can't help but think, wait a second, could this actually be true? Let's break down why this video mattered so much. It wasn't just the words, but the timing, the platform, and the persona behind them. Candace didn't bury this line in a rant about Hollywood hypocrisy. She made it the centerpiece, the kind of line designed to explode across social media. And it did. Within hours, hashtags trended. Meghan 52 memes sprouted everywhere. People started pulling out old photos, comparing Meghan at 40 to women actually in their 50s, circling crow's feet, zooming in on hands, parsing every detail like forensic detectives. But here's the kicker. Candace Owens didn't provide documents, didn't wave around a birth certificate, didn't produce a secret file. She didn't need to. She knows the power of suggestion. She knows that when you drop a claim this outrageous, the audience will do the digging for you. And sure enough, they did. Now pause for a moment and think about Meghan's position. This is a woman who has fought tooth and nail to control every narrative about her. Every photo she releases is curated, every soundbite rehearsed, every leak countered with another spin. And suddenly, she's up against someone who isn't afraid of her legal threats, who isn't dazzled by her Duchess title, who doesn't play by Hollywood's rules. That's why Candace's words carried such weight. They pierced Meghan's armor in a way few others could. The middle of the video is where Candace really twisted the knife. She didn't just say Meghan was lying about her age. She tied it to a bigger story: authenticity. She said Meghan's entire persona was a facade, and that this age scandal was just one piece of a much larger deception. And you could see it. Owens wasn't just throwing shade for fun. She was framing Meghan as the ultimate hypocrite, someone who lectures the world about truth and justice while hiding her own secrets. And isn't that the point? Candace didn't need to prove Meghan is 52. All she had to do was make people doubt the official number. Doubt is powerful. Doubt corrodes trust. Doubt makes people ask questions, and once questions start, the answers rarely satisfy. Think of it like a domino effect. One accusation leads to another. If Meghan lied about her age, what else might she have lied about? Her stories of hardship? Her feuds with the royal family? Her tales of palace cruelty? One domino tips the next, until the entire narrative begins to collapse. And that's exactly what made Candace's video so devastating. It wasn't just about numbers on a birth certificate. It was about unraveling Meghan's credibility thread by thread. But here's the part that really stung. Candace Owens knows her audience. She knows her followers are fiercely loyal, suspicious of elites, and primed to believe that the glossy world of celebrity is built on lies. By pointing her finger at Meghan, she gave them a rallying cry, a chance to laugh, to mock, to expose. And once that energy caught fire, it spread beyond Candace's own base. Suddenly, Meghan's critics worldwide had fresh ammunition. Suddenly, the idea of Meghan being 52 wasn't a fringe theory. It was dinner table conversation. And let's not pretend Meghan didn't feel the burn. Her silence was telling. Normally, her PR machine would rush to spin, to distract, to pivot the story. But this time, nothing. And that silence was louder than any denial. Because silence invites speculation. Silence whispers, maybe it's true. Now, here's where it gets even more dangerous for Meghan. Once people started pulling receipts, they found cracks, tiny inconsistencies in timelines, yearbook rumors, interviews that didn't quite line up. Were they smoking guns? No. But in the court of public opinion, perception is often more damning than proof. And Candace Owens handed that perception to the world on a silver platter. Let's not forget, Meghan's brand relies heavily on being relatable. The underdog, the woman of the people, the modern Cinderella. That image shatters if she's exposed as someone who can't even be honest about her age. Because then it's not just Hollywood vanity, it's deception, it's betrayal. It's proof that her authenticity was an act all along. And the question that lingers, the one Candace Owens planted like a seed in millions of minds, is this. Why would Meghan lie about something so basic? The audience is left hanging on that question, chewing on it, whispering about it, reposting about it. Candace didn't need to say more. She knew she'd already won. But here's the twist you didn't see coming. Candace Owens hinted that she wasn't done, that Meghan's age was just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. She suggested more revelations were on the way. And that tease, that cliffhanger, sent shockwaves through the debate. Because if this was just the opening salvo, what else might Candace Owens be ready to unleash? And what came next, no one saw it coming. Meghan Markle was born on August 4th, 1981, or so the official record says. That date has been repeated in countless biographies, news articles, and royal press releases. It's the cornerstone of her public identity, stamped onto every birthday headline and woven into every timeline of her career. On paper, there's no debate. But here's the catch. The public rarely questions what's printed on the page, until someone like Candace Owens throws a grenade into the conversation. Suddenly, the official story doesn't feel so airtight anymore. Let's rewind. Meghan's narrative has always emphasized her relatability. Born in Los Angeles, raised by divorced parents, worked hard to climb the ladder in Hollywood. And central to that narrative is her age. If she was born in 1981, then she was 36 when she married Prince Harry, a modern, independent woman still young enough to be seen as part of a new generation of royals, yet old enough to be portrayed as mature and experienced. The number worked perfectly. It made her story neat, digestible, believable. But what happens when the neat story starts to fray? That's where the rumors creep in. Long before Candace Owens' video, whispers circulated about inconsistencies in Meghan's timeline. A classmate here, an old colleague there, someone saying, "Wait a second. I thought she was older than that when we met." These weren't hard facts. They were murmurs. But murmurs have a way of becoming thunder when amplified by the right voice. Think about it. Meghan's high school graduation year has been debated by internet sleuths who swear the math doesn't add up. Some claim she looked older than her peers in old photographs. Others point to details from her early Hollywood career, suggesting that casting directors listed her in age brackets that didn't align with her official birth year. Was it sloppy reporting? Or was Meghan quietly shaving off years to make herself more marketable? Now let's talk about the contradictions. Meghan herself has made statements in interviews that fans have picked apart. For example, in one old conversation, she referenced experiences that didn't quite line up with her supposed age at the time. Small details, yes. But when those details are placed under the microscope, especially now, they take on a new weight. And here's the irony. Meghan's official age, 43, actually works in her favor. She's old enough to command respect and young enough to remain culturally relevant. So why would anyone doubt it? Why would anyone risk fabricating something as dangerous as a false birth year? That's the million-dollar question. And yet, in Hollywood, it wouldn't be the first time. Actresses like Sandra Bullock, Jennifer Lopez, and even Beyoncé have faced similar speculation at different points in their careers. Sometimes the doubts fizzle out. Sometimes they stick forever. What makes Meghan's situation unique is the royal factor. When she married Harry, her biography wasn't just a personal story anymore. It became an official narrative endorsed by Buckingham Palace. And here's where the intrigue deepens. The palace is meticulous. They vet every detail, every date, every milestone. Could it really be possible that they rubber-stamped a false age? Or did they know and choose to stay silent for the sake of the fairy tale? Let's play devil's advocate. If Meghan really were older than she claims, the palace would have had every reason to bury it. Why? Because perception matters in monarchy. A 36-year-old American divorcee marrying into the royal family is one story. But a woman in her 40s or early 50s stepping into that spotlight, that shifts the entire narrative. Suddenly, Meghan doesn't look like the fresh face of modernity. She looks like an outsider forcing her way into a system that thrives on youth and longevity. And here's another point the critics love to raise: motherhood. Meghan gave birth to Archie at 37 and Lilibet at 39. At least, that's the official story. But if she were significantly older, it opens the door to even more speculation. Surrogacy rumors, medical assistance, questions about plausibility. The age debate doesn't just touch Meghan's vanity. It ricochets into every corner of her personal and royal life. So why do people latch onto these rumors so fiercely? Because age isn't just about numbers, it's about truth. If Meghan lied about something as simple as her birth year, what else has she manipulated? It becomes a gateway question, a crack in the dam that makes everything else look suspicious. And Candace Owens knew exactly how to frame it. By demanding Meghan just admit her real age, Owens wasn't simply accusing her of vanity. She was accusing her of fraudulence. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Some defenders have come forward with receipts, archived school documents, old yearbooks, bits and pieces that reinforce Meghan's 1981 birth year. On the surface, these documents should settle the matter. But the problem is, once doubt has been planted, even legitimate records look questionable. Are they authentic? People ask. Were they doctored? Were they selectively released? The cycle of suspicion feeds itself endlessly. And yet, the skeptics keep circling back to one damning observation. Meghan has always been meticulous about her public image. If she were guilty of even a small deception, she would fight tooth and nail to control it. Which makes her silence now all the more suspicious. Because silence, as we've said before, leaves a void. And that void is quickly filled by speculation, memes, and conspiracy theories. But here's the cliffhanger. Among all the rumors, all the memes, all the contradictions, there is one forgotten detail from Meghan's early acting career that doesn't just raise questions. It throws the entire timeline into chaos. A detail so overlooked that when it resurfaced, even Meghan's staunchest defenders were left scratching their heads. And that detail would change everything. Hollywood has always had a dirty little secret, one that everyone knows but no one admits out loud. Age is a currency, and lying about it is practically an industry standard. Actors and actresses have been shaving years off their official timelines for as long as casting calls have existed. The entertainment world is brutal, obsessed with youth, and quick to toss aside anyone it deems too old for a role. So when Candace Owens accused Meghan Markle of lying about her age, the claim didn't sound completely outlandish. It sounded like something Hollywood itself had practically normalized. Think about it. In Tinseltown, perception isn't just important, it's everything. There are legendary stories of actresses who maintained a public age 5, 10, even 15 years younger than their real birth year. Casting directors have quietly admitted that they'd ignore resumes listing ages above 35 for certain roles. Managers have suggested clients knock a few years off to stay competitive. And in an industry where a 29-year-old is often told she's too old to play a romantic lead, the temptation to rewrite reality is overwhelming. Let's put this into perspective with some examples. Remember when actress Gabrielle Carteris from Beverly Hills 90210 played a teenager at age 29? She kept her real age hidden because she knew Hollywood wouldn't buy into her playing a high schooler otherwise. Or take Jennifer Lopez, who faced speculation for years about whether she was older than she claimed. Even Beyoncé wasn't immune. Fans scoured early records and pointed out inconsistencies. This isn't a Meghan-only story. It's a Hollywood story, and Meghan was deep in that world long before she became a duchess. Now, let's ask the obvious question. If lying about age is such a well-worn Hollywood tactic, why wouldn't Meghan have done the same? She started out as an actress grinding for bit parts, struggling to break through in a competitive industry that prizes youth. Every role mattered. Every audition was a chance to get noticed. If knocking a few years off her age increased her chances, wouldn't it have been tempting? And here's where things get juicy. Some of Meghan's early roles don't quite align with her official age. She appeared on shows like General Hospital and Deal or No Deal, often cast in roles that skewed younger. Casting calls are brutal about age brackets. They want women in their mid-20s or early 30s. If Meghan was really older than the age she gave, those roles suddenly look less like a natural fit and more like the result of a carefully curated illusion. But the Hollywood age game isn't just about getting roles. It's about staying in the spotlight. Look at actresses who reinvent themselves by playing eternally 35, even as decades pass. Meghan wasn't a superstar in her Hollywood years, but she was ambitious. Friends from that era have described her as strategic, always thinking ahead, always conscious of her image. In that kind of mindset, adjusting her age wouldn't be a betrayal, it would be a business move. And here's the emotional punch. Lying about age in Hollywood might start as a survival tactic, but it doesn't end there. Once you commit, you're locked in. You have to remember your new number at every interview, every casting call, every casual conversation. One slip, one forgotten detail, and the illusion cracks. And once you carry that illusion long enough, it stops being a trick and becomes a part of your identity. Could that be what happened with Meghan? Did a small, early adjustment snowball into a lifelong narrative she couldn't walk back? Ask yourself this. When Meghan transitioned from actress to royal, did anyone really stop to question her official timeline? Or did everyone just accept the version she had already been presenting for years? The palace, the media, even Harry, they all bought into the story without blinking. Because in a way, that's what we all do with celebrities. We accept the packaging. We believe the press kits. We trust the narrative. Until someone like Candace Owens points a finger and says, "Look closer." But here's where it gets even darker. In Hollywood, lying about age is often treated as harmless, even expected. But for Meghan, it's not harmless anymore. She's not just a struggling actress trying to land roles. She's a global figure whose credibility underpins everything she does. If her age is false, then her authenticity is false. And in the ruthless arena of public opinion, that's unforgivable. This is where the cliffhanger builds. Because if Meghan really did play the Hollywood age game, there must be traces, photographs, interviews, casting documents that reveal the cracks. And in fact, one of those documents, long buried and forgotten, has already resurfaced, casting doubt on everything Meghan has claimed about her youth. And that discovery would take the age rumors from speculation to scandal. Let's peel back the curtain on Meghan Markle's early career, the time before palaces and pearls, when she was hustling in Hollywood, grasping at any role that could edge her closer to stardom. It was during these formative years that the seeds of suspicion about her age began to sprout. Because if you look closely at the timeline, If you study the photographs, the casting calls, the interviews, the stories told by those who knew her, things don't always line up as neatly as Meghan's official biography would have us believe. Start with the yearbooks. High school photos are supposed to be anchors of truth. They stamp a moment in time, surrounded by classmates who all share the same age bracket. But when Meghan's old photos started circulating online, eagle-eyed observers noticed something odd. Compared side by side with peers from the same graduating class, Meghan appeared older. Not just older in style, but older in presence. Some whispered that she looked more like a teacher than a student. Was it maturity? Was it genetics? Or was it something more? Now let's jump to Northwestern University. Meghan officially enrolled in the mid-1990s, majoring in theater and international studies. If she was born in 1981, the math fits. She would have been 18 when she started. But here's where skeptics raise their eyebrows. Former acquaintances claim Meghan presented herself as being older than her peers during that time. Not dramatically older, but seasoned, worldlier. One alum recalled her talking about experiences that didn't seem to fit the age she claimed to be. Another insisted Meghan always dodged direct questions about her exact age. Small details, innocuous on their own, but together, they paint a picture of someone already carefully managing her narrative. Then comes the Hollywood hustle. Meghan's first credited roles began in the early 2000s. She played background characters, one-off roles on television shows, even stood behind a briefcase on Deal or No Deal. Casting documents from that period, though rarely public, often required actors to self-report their playing age, the range of years they could convincingly portray. And here's where the controversy brews. Meghan often auditioned for roles listed for women in their mid to late 20s well into her 30s. Was she simply youthful-looking? Or was she actively bending the truth to match the casting director's expectations? Consider this. In 2002, Meghan appeared on General Hospital. If she was born in 1981, she would have been 21. But fans who've revisited that footage argue she looked closer to 30. The camera doesn't lie, they say, and while looks can be subjective, the discrepancy fuels the suspicion. Even more intriguing are Meghan's own words. In interviews from her Suits days, she occasionally dropped anecdotes that seemed off by a few years. She once referenced being out of college a decade ago, at a time when her official age suggested it was closer to 7 years. Was it a slip of the tongue? Or was she subconsciously speaking her real truth? And here's a twist that rarely gets mentioned. Meghan once maintained a personal blog, The Tig, where she spoke candidly about her life and experiences. Some of her posts hinted at timelines that didn't perfectly sync with her official biography. A post about youthful struggles read more like the reflections of someone who had already crossed into her 40s, rather than a woman in her mid-30s. Subtle, but telling. Now, let's add another layer. Meghan's friends and former associates. Jessica Mulroney, Nanaki Pretty, and others from her early circle have been vocal at times about Meghan's ambition and knack for reinvention. One acquaintance, in an interview years ago, claimed Meghan was always a little cagey about her age. Another hinted that Meghan deliberately cultivated a timeless persona, avoiding references that would pin her down to a specific generation. Again, nothing definitive. But when Candace Owens' accusation hit the airwaves, these old remarks resurfaced with new potency. The inconsistencies stretch further when you analyze Meghan's Hollywood resume. Some of her listed acting credits don't align perfectly with her supposed age at the time. Casting websites and promotional material occasionally described her as being in age brackets that would only fit if she were older than 1981 suggests. Of course, resumes are often adjusted in Hollywood. It's practically a rite of passage. But in Meghan's case, every small adjustment feeds into the larger accusation that she's been carrying a lie for decades. And what about her transition to Suits? Landing the role of Rachel Zane was Meghan's breakout moment. Officially, she was in her early 30s when she joined the show. But skeptics argue she carried herself with the gravity and maturity of someone several years older. Even castmates remarked on her being wise beyond her years. Was it a compliment? Or an unintentional slip about her real age? Here's where the irony hits hard. Meghan's career, while modest, was built on her ability to fit into roles that demanded flexibility, sometimes younger, sometimes older. That adaptability is what kept her afloat in Hollywood. But adaptability in acting becomes deception in real life when the lines blur too much. And that's the tightrope Meghan may have been walking all along. Now, let's not forget, Meghan wasn't just chasing roles. She was chasing an identity. She wasn't content being a background actress. She wanted to be a star. Every interview, every photo shoot, every press kit was another opportunity to refine her image. And if shaving a few years off her age helped solidify that identity, would she really have hesitated? But here's the cliffhanger, the piece that turns whispers into suspicion. A photograph from Meghan's early career, long forgotten, rarely discussed, resurfaced online. In that photo, Meghan is listed under an age category that doesn't match her official birth year. At first glance, it might seem like a clerical error, but when you place it alongside the other inconsistencies, the yearbooks, the interviews, the resumes, it suddenly doesn't look like an accident at all. And that photograph, that single overlooked piece of evidence, would throw gasoline on the fire of Meghan's age controversy. When Meghan Markle crossed the threshold from Hollywood hopeful to royal bride, something extraordinary happened. Her entire narrative was rewritten overnight. She was no longer just an actress from Los Angeles hustling for roles. She was now the Duchess of Sussex, a woman standing shoulder to shoulder with centuries of British monarchy. But here's the thing about fairy tales. They demand flawless storytelling. And in Meghan's case, that meant every detail, down to her age, had to be polished, packaged, and perfectly aligned with the image of a modern royal. The royal transformation wasn't just about tiaras and titles. It was about crafting a story the world could believe in. A biracial American divorcee marrying into the most traditional royal family on earth? That's a narrative bombshell. To make it work, every element had to be controlled. Her background, her family story, her career, her love story with Harry. And age? Age was central to all of it. If Meghan was born in 1981, she was 36 when she married Harry in 2018. The number was just right. Old enough to be mature, but young enough to sell the narrative of a modern fairy tale couple ready to raise a new generation of royals. It made her relatable to millennials while still resonating with older fans. A perfect balance. Too perfect, some might say. Behind palace walls, Meghan's age was never publicly debated. The official biographies repeated the 1981 birth year like gospel. But here's where the tension simmers. Buckingham Palace is famous for its rigorous vetting. Every royal bride is scrutinized. Background checks, lineage analysis, financial records, even medical reports. So if there were any discrepancies in Meghan's age, the palace would have known. The question becomes, did they overlook it, or did they deliberately help protect it? Imagine the stakes. A royal wedding is a global event, not just a family affair. Billions watched Meghan walk down the aisle. The monarchy itself leaned on her story to project modern relevance. Admitting to something as trivial, but as explosive, as an age discrepancy would have been unthinkable. The palace needed the narrative to shine. And in the monarchy, optics often outweigh truth. Let's look at the transformation more closely. Meghan's PR shifted gears dramatically once she became a royal. Gone were the casual blog posts on the TIG, the red carpet hustles, the Hollywood networking. In their place came carefully scripted appearances, regal photo shoots, and press releases dripping with royal polish. Age references all but disappeared from Meghan's public persona. Reporters were discouraged from emphasizing her age in headlines. A move insiders say was intentional to focus on her timeless qualities rather than numbers. And here's where the cracks start to show. Meghan leaned heavily into the image of being Harry's younger, glamorous partner. Their story was framed as the tale of a prince finding a fresh, modern companion after years of bachelorhood. But Harry was 33 at the time, just 3 years younger than Meghan, officially. What if, in reality, Meghan was significantly older? The entire framing of their romance shifts. Instead of a near-peer love story, it becomes something entirely different. Something the palace may have feared wouldn't play as well in the press. Now, consider the royal duty of producing heirs. The monarchy thrives on lineage, on ensuring the next generation of royals is secure. Meghan gave birth to Archie less than a year after the wedding, at the official age of 37. Later, she had Lilibet at 39. Perfectly plausible numbers for modern motherhood. But if Meghan were truly older, say mid to late 40s at the time, Suddenly, the timeline of her pregnancies looks far more complicated. And that, in turn, would ignite a storm of speculation about fertility, surrogacy, and medical assistance, rumors that already swirl around her to this day. The transformation also demanded Meghan fit seamlessly into the optics of youth and vitality that the monarchy craves. Kate Middleton had already established herself as the perfect future queen, graceful, polished, and youthful in appearance. Meghan needed to match that energy, if not exceed it. The palace couldn't afford for her to appear older, more tired, or less radiant. And so, whether intentional or not, her image was curated with precision to highlight freshness, vibrancy, and modernity. But here's the irony. Meghan's transformation into a duchess wasn't just about image, it was about survival. Hollywood may have required shaving years off her age to land roles, but the royal world required something even more intense, maintaining the illusion of eternal relevance. And that illusion comes with a heavy price. The tighter Meghan clung to control, the more explosive it became when someone like Candace Owens challenged it. Now picture this. Palace insiders whispering about Meghan's background during the engagement phase. Journalists digging into her past, hunting for inconsistencies. A few subtle mentions in early articles suggested Meghan was older than she seemed, but those lines mysteriously disappeared in final drafts. Was it editorial choice? Or quiet pressure from palace PR teams desperate to keep the story clean? And here's where the cliffhanger builds. If the palace really did know Meghan's true age and chose to conceal it, then Candace Owens' accusation isn't just about Meghan anymore. It's about the monarchy itself. It raises a terrifying question for the royals. If they were willing to protect Meghan's age, what else were they willing to protect? Because if the palace colluded in rewriting Meghan's timeline, then the age scandal doesn't just tarnish Meghan, it tarnishes the crown. And that possibility is what makes this revelation so dangerous. Why does age matter so much? Why does a single number, etched in ink on a birth certificate, carry the power to make or break careers, reputations, even legacies? The truth is, age isn't just a biological fact. It's a weapon, a shield, a currency, and a mirror all rolled into one. And when it comes to Meghan Markle, the psychology of age is at the very heart of her story, and the very reason Candace Owens' claim hit like a lightning strike. Let's get real. Society is obsessed with youth. In Hollywood, in politics, in media, youth isn't just celebrated, it's demanded. Younger means fresher, more marketable, more desirable. Older means fading relevance, diminishing roles, and a creeping invisibility that no celebrity ever wants to face. And Meghan? She was raised in that culture. She built her career in a world where shaving a few years off your age isn't considered a crime. It's considered survival. But here's the deeper psychology. Lying about age isn't just about vanity. It's about power. Think of age as a tool Meghan could wield depending on her goals. When she wanted to land roles in her 20s, being younger gave her access. When she wanted to be seen as a mature, worldly figure alongside Prince Harry, the official number gave her just enough gravitas without tipping her into irrelevance. Age became a lever she could pull depending on the situation. Now ask yourself this. What does it say about Meghan if she did manipulate her age? It says she understood, better than most, how perception shapes power. It says she knew exactly how to position herself in every stage of her journey, whether in Hollywood auditions, royal courtships, or global interviews. And it says that she was willing to bend truth itself if it meant keeping her hands firmly on the wheel of her destiny. Here's where it gets even more intriguing. In psychology, there's a concept called identity management. It's the idea that people consciously shape how others see them, sometimes by exaggerating, sometimes by concealing. Meghan is a master of identity management. Her entire public persona is built on carefully chosen narratives: the underdog, the feminist, the outsider, the survivor. If adjusting her age by a few years helped reinforce those narratives, is it really surprising she might have done it? But age doesn't just affect perception of capability. It also affects perception of authenticity. Think about it. Authenticity has become Meghan's brand. She speaks about living your truth, about honesty, about standing against hypocrisy. But if the foundation of her own story is shaky, if she can't even be transparent about when she was born, then the whole brand crumbles. And that's why Candace Owens' jab hurt so much. It wasn't about birthdays. It was about trust. And trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild. Let's add another layer. Age also dictates how we view relationships. Harry and Meghan's love story was painted as a modern fairy tale between near equals. Harry, the charming younger prince, and Meghan, the confident, slightly older woman with worldly experience. Officially, the 3-year age gap added a refreshing twist. It challenged stereotypes. It made Meghan look strong and independent. But if Meghan were secretly much older, the narrative flips entirely. Suddenly, Harry looks like a younger man lured by an older, more calculating partner. Suddenly, the fairy tale looks less romantic and more predatory in the eyes of critics. See how fast perception shifts with just one altered number? And then, of course, there's motherhood. Few topics are as emotionally loaded as the age of a woman when she has children. At the official ages of 37 and 39, Meghan's pregnancies were framed as inspiring examples of modern motherhood. She was applauded for having children later in life, showing resilience, and embracing the challenges. But if she were actually older, the narrative becomes complicated, messy, controversial. It opens doors to surrogacy rumors, questions about medical intervention, doubts about transparency. Age here doesn't just alter perception, it alters the credibility of her very family story. But here's the part most people miss, the irony. Age, for Meghan, was both her biggest advantage and her biggest vulnerability. She wielded it like a weapon, but the more tightly she clutched it, the more explosive it became when challenged. Candace Owens' 52 claim wasn't just a number thrown in the wind. It was a trigger aimed at Meghan's deepest insecurity. Because what terrifies Meghan more than anything? Losing control of her story. And that's the psychological trap. The harder Meghan tries to control the narrative, the less authentic she appears. The less authentic she appears, the more critics pounce. And when critics pounce, they expose the very thing she wanted to hide in the first place. It's a vicious cycle, one that Candace Owens weaponized with surgical precision. But let's leave you with this cliffhanger. Meghan has spent her entire life managing how the world perceives her. Every word, every smile, every carefully posed photograph has been part of that effort. But the psychology of age is relentless. It has a way of surfacing, no matter how deeply it's buried. And as the whispers grew louder, as Candace Owens lit the match, Meghan's carefully guarded truth was about to face its most dangerous test yet. Because the next chapter isn't just about Meghan's psychology, it's about Candace Owens' motive. Why her? Why now? And why was she so determined to put Meghan's age at the center of a cultural firestorm? Candace Owens has never been the type to tiptoe around controversy. If anything, controversy is her arena. She thrives in it, sharpens her brand on it, and uses it to cement her position as one of the most fearless, uncompromising voices in modern media. So when she set her sights on Meghan Markle and dropped the bombshell line, just admit you're 52 years old. It wasn't random. It wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was deliberate. And to understand why, we have to look at Candace Owens' motives, the fuel behind the fire. Candace has built her career on calling out what she sees as hypocrisy, double standards, and the toxic culture of celebrity victimhood. Time and again, she's targeted figures who weaponize identity for personal gain. And Meghan Markle? She is the perfect storm of everything Candace despises. A woman who claims oppression while living in mansions, who positions herself as a truth-teller while allegedly spinning narratives, who demands privacy while launching multi-million-dollar media deals. For Candace, Meghan isn't just another celebrity. She's the ultimate symbol of performative victimhood. Now add age into the mix. What better way to attack Meghan's carefully cultivated image than to go after the one thing she guards most fiercely, her authenticity? Think about it. Meghan has branded herself as a modern woman speaking truth to power, someone brave enough to expose racism in the royal family, strong enough to share struggles with mental health, bold enough to step back from royal duties. But if she's been lying about her own age all along, that shatters the brand. That makes every other claim suspect. And Candace Owens knows this. So let's break it down. First, there's the audience factor. Candace Owens' audience is global, skeptical of elites, hungry for unvarnished truth, and primed to distrust figures like Meghan. For Candace to tell them that Meghan is lying about her age is to hand them proof that their instincts were right all along, that Meghan is exactly what they suspected, a fraud. Candace didn't just speak to her fans. She validated them, gave them a rallying cry, a hashtag, a meme that spread like wildfire. Second, there's the symbolic factor. Meghan's story isn't just about one woman. It's about a cultural shift. She represents Hollywood glamour colliding with royalty, American celebrity culture invading British tradition, personal ambition disguised as public service. By targeting Meghan, Candace was making a larger point. This is what happens when celebrity culture runs unchecked, when image matters more than truth. The 52 jab wasn't just an insult, it was a metaphor. It said, here is the proof that Meghan Markle's entire story is artificial. Third, there's the strategic factor. Candace Owens is a master of timing. She knows when a figure is vulnerable, when public opinion is teetering, when a single blow can push the narrative over the edge. Meghan has been battered in the press for years. Criticized for her Netflix flop, her Spotify fallout, her broken ties with the royals. Public patience with her victim narrative was already thin. Candace waited until Meghan's credibility was at its weakest, and then she struck. And finally, there's the personal factor. Candace Owens relishes being the outsider who dares to say what others won't. The mainstream media tiptoes around Meghan, afraid of being labeled sexist or racist if they criticize her too harshly. But Candace? She's immune to that fear. She doesn't play by those rules. By making a claim as outrageous as 52, she positioned herself as the lone truth-teller in a sea of cowardice. She became the voice that dared to puncture the illusion, and in doing so, she amplified her own brand. Now, here's where it gets even more fascinating. Candace's motives aren't purely about Meghan. They're about the culture at large. She wasn't just attacking one duchess. She was attacking an entire system of celebrity worship, of false narratives, of curated lies. Meghan just happened to be the perfect vessel for that attack. By zeroing in on age, a universally understood, universally relatable issue, Candace made the story bigger than Meghan. She made it about all of us. Ask yourself, haven't we all seen someone cling to youth, resist the truth of time, try to pass as younger than they are? Haven't we all rolled our eyes at the artificiality of Hollywood and its obsession with eternal youth? That's why Candace's claim resonated. It wasn't just Meghan under the microscope. It was every celebrity who's ever lied to us, every public figure who's ever thought they could control reality itself. But here's the real kicker. Candace Owens doesn't just provoke for attention. She provokes to trigger chain reactions. She knew her words would send internet detectives digging, tabloids speculating, critics salivating. And once the avalanche began, Meghan's silence would only make it worse. By the time the dust settled, the debate wasn't just whether Meghan was 52. The debate was whether Meghan had ever been honest about anything at all. Candace Owens' motive was clear: expose hypocrisy, ignite a cultural firestorm, and position herself as the fearless voice in the middle of it. And she succeeded. But here's the chilling part. Candace hinted that the age claim was just the beginning, that there were more truths about Meghan waiting to be revealed. And what happened next would prove that Candace's words weren't just a passing dig. They were the opening act in a much bigger drama. The moment Candace Owens said those 7 words, "Just admit you're 52 years old," the internet didn't just react. It erupted. It was as if she had thrown a match into a field of dry grass. Within minutes, the clip spread across Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Millions of people watched, rewatched, clipped, memed, and debated. And just like that, Meghan Markle's real age wasn't a fringe theory anymore. It was the trending topic of the day, and it wouldn't let go. First, let's talk about Twitter. Hashtags exploded almost instantly. Hashtag Meghan52. Hashtag Just Admit It. Hashtag Candace Exposes Meghan. Users began sharing side-by-side photos of Meghan at various points in her life, with captions like, "Does this look like 43 to you?" and "My mom is 52 and looks younger than Meghan." The memes came fast and furious. Wrinkled filters, mock horoscopes, and doctor driver's licenses with Meghan's face plastered on them. Twitter thrives on speed and snark, and this story was tailor-made for both. Then came TikTok. Influencers and armchair detectives pounced on the moment. Some pulled up old clips of Meghan from Deal or No Deal, comparing her to women of similar age groups. Others did elaborate breakdowns of her alleged timelines. If Meghan graduated in this year, and she said this in that interview, then she would actually be. These TikTok detectives, often with dramatic background music and flashing graphics, turn speculation into viral mini-documentaries. Suddenly, millions of young viewers who might not have cared about Meghan's age before were glued to the debate. On Instagram, celebrity gossip accounts had a field day. Pages like Dumois and Royal Watching fan hubs reposted Candace's clip with captions like, "Did Candace go too far? Or did she finally say what we're all thinking?" The comments sections became battlegrounds. Meghan defenders called the claim ridiculous, racist, and misogynistic, while critics piled on with laughing emojis, and finally someone said it. The polarization was immediate and intense. And then there was YouTube. Reaction videos flooded the platform within hours. Some creators laughed at the absurdity of the claim, while others treated it as a serious expose. The Meghan Markle age conspiracy, explained, became a trending format, with creators pulling together every scrap of evidence they could find: school photos, old interviews, yearbook scans, IMDb listings. For YouTubers, this was content gold, a sensational claim, endless material to analyze, and an audience hungry for drama. But it wasn't just social media. Mainstream media outlets couldn't resist either. Headlines popped up across tabloids and entertainment news sites. Candace Owens claims Meghan Markle is 52 in shocking rant. Meghan Markle's age under fire after viral Owens clip. Fact check. Is Meghan Markle really 52? Even outlets that typically tread lightly around Meghan found themselves forced to cover it, if only to debunk it. But here's the paradox. Every attempt to fact-check or dismiss the claim only fueled more curiosity. Because in the digital age, denial often reads like confirmation. And here's where things got really fascinating. Meghan's silence. Normally, when a rumor catches fire, her PR machine scrambles to spin the narrative, sometimes with a carefully placed op-ed, sometimes with a soft-focus photoshoot, sometimes with a subtle source close to Meghan leak. But this time, nothing. No response. No denial. No distraction campaign. Just silence. And in the world of media, silence is gasoline on the flames. Critics seized on it. If it's not true, why doesn't she say so? One viral tweet read. It's a simple denial. Why won't she give it? Others pointed out that Meghan and Harry have sued media outlets before for what they called defamatory lies. If this was truly baseless, why not file legal action? The longer the silence dragged on, the louder the speculation became. And it wasn't just critics who noticed. Even Meghan's defenders grew uneasy. Some admitted in comments, "Look, I don't believe this for a second, but I wish she'd just address it." Others argued that responding would only legitimize Candace Owens. The debate fractured Meghan's own support base, some saying ignore it, some saying fight it, all while the internet churned the rumor mill nonstop. Meanwhile, the memes kept coming. One showed Meghan blowing out candles on a birthday cake stacked with 52 candles. The caption, "Just admit it." Another compared Meghan's official birth year of 1981 with pop culture events from that time, suggesting she was old enough to remember things she shouldn't have been able to as a child. Humor mixed with suspicion, and the result was devastating to Meghan's brand. But here's the real twist. In the middle of the chaos, old footage started resurfacing. A clip of Meghan in an interview casually mentioning being out of college for about a decade when the math didn't quite add up. A resurfaced casting call listing her as late 20s when she should have been early 20s. None of it was definitive, but it didn't need to be. In the echo chamber of social media, suggestion is enough. And that's the danger Meghan faced. Once the internet collectively decides to play detective, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. Every photograph, every line of dialogue, every forgotten blog post becomes evidence in the trial by public opinion. And when the verdict is delivered there, facts often matter less than perception. The reaction was bigger than just Meghan. It became a cultural moment, a debate about truth, about celebrity authenticity, about the absurd pressures of age in society. People projected their own frustrations onto it. Some sympathized, saying, "Who cares if she lied? The system forced her to." Others sneered, "If she lied about this, she lied about everything." Meghan became less of a person and more of a symbol, a lightning rod for every grievance people had with celebrities, royals, or women in power. But the real storm was still to come, because as the media frenzy peaked, Meghan's defenders began to strike back with accusations of their own. They claimed Candace Owens wasn't just exposing Meghan's age, she was weaponizing it for darker purposes. They accused her of feeding into racialized narratives, of stoking misogyny, of tearing down a woman just for aging. And in that clash between Meghan's critics and defenders, the story took on a life of its own. What came next wasn't just reaction. It was retaliation, and it would push the Meghan age scandal into even darker, more explosive territory. Silence can be louder than words. In the wake of Candace Owens' viral video, Meghan Markle's refusal to respond became its own headline. Commentators, critics, fans, and foes alike all asked the same burning question: why isn't Meghan saying anything? Think about the position Meghan was in. On one hand, if she had immediately addressed the claim, she could have shut it down, or at least attempted to. A sharp, clear denial backed by evidence might have taken some steam out of the story. But on the other hand, by responding at all, Meghan would be legitimizing Candace Owens' attack. She would be drawing even more attention to the idea that she might not be telling the truth about her age. And Meghan knows better than anyone. The more you fight a narrative, the bigger it grows. So she stayed quiet. But silence is a double-edged sword. To her critics, it looked like guilt. To her supporters, it looked like weakness. And to everyone else caught in the middle, it looked suspicious. Silence leaves space, and that space gets filled by speculation, memes, gossip, and endless theorizing. Let's put this into context. Meghan has a history of carefully choosing her battles. During the Oprah interview, she didn't answer every question directly. She left gaps, dropped implications, and let viewers draw their own conclusions. In her Netflix series, she revealed just enough to spark outrage, but never the full picture. Her silence is not just avoidance, it's strategy. But the strategy doesn't always land. Sometimes silence looks like strength. Sometimes it looks like surrender. And here's the irony. Meghan and Harry have been notoriously litigious when it comes to media coverage. They've sued tabloids over stories about their private lives. They've sent cease and desist letters. They've fought tooth and nail to protect their brand. Yet when Candace Owens made one of the most outrageous claims ever about Meghan, accusing her of lying about her age, there was no lawsuit, no legal threat, not even a strongly worded statement from their PR team. The absence was deafening. This raised even more questions. Why draw a line in the sand over private letters or paparazzi photos, but not over a claim that Meghan is 52 years old? Some speculated the Sussexes' team feared discovery. Legal action would invite scrutiny into Meghan's records, and if anything didn't line up, it could be catastrophic. Others argued Meghan calculated that the rumor would burn out on its own, that engaging with Candace Owens would only elevate her platform. Both explanations make sense, but both explanations also highlight Meghan's biggest vulnerability: control. Control has always been Meghan's obsession. Control of her image. Control of her narrative. Control of her brand. And when Candace Owens snatched that control away with one viral line, Meghan had no playbook. Every option was a trap. Speak, and you feed the fire. Stay silent, and you look guilty. It was the perfect catch. 22. Now imagine the conversations happening behind the scenes. Meghan pacing, Harry urging calm, PR strategists debating endlessly over whether to respond. If we deny, we legitimize. If we ignore, we look guilty. If we sue, we risk exposure. Every option bad. Every option costly. Meghan trapped in the very silence she hoped would save her. And here's where the public perception twisted even further. Meghan's silence gave oxygen to her critics. Why won't she just show her birth certificate? They demanded. It's the simplest thing in the world. But Meghan is not just a woman anymore. She's a brand, a business, a political statement. To show documents, to prove anything, would be to reduce herself to the level of the very tabloids she claims to despise. To Meghan, silence might have felt like dignity. But to the outside world, it looked like a smirk. And then came the resurfaced clips. Old interviews where Meghan casually mentioned timelines that didn't fit. A 2011 magazine feature where her age was misstated. A resurfaced IMDb listing with a date that didn't quite add up. none of it definitive, but all of it magnified by the silence. If Meghan had spoken, maybe those inconsistencies would have been brushed off. But in the vacuum of her non-response, every scrap of evidence became a smoking gun. Her silence also fractured her fan base. Loyal supporters begged her to rise above Candace Owens, to ignore the noise. Others pleaded with her to fight back, to defend her credibility, to put the rumors to bed once and for all. Meghan's brand depends on loyalty, and for the first time, even her loyalists were confused. Should they laugh it off? Should they defend her online? Should they demand answers? Without Meghan's guidance, even her defenders felt lost. And yet, perhaps the most damaging consequence of Meghan's silence wasn't public speculation. It was private doubt. Behind closed doors, within Hollywood, among potential business partners,